What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. We've got one more week of golf before the current quote-unquote season ends on the PGA Tour with the Tour Championship at East Lake. 30 golfers in the field this week. Kind of been hit or miss whether we've done a show for this in the past, but decided to do one here for this week. It will certainly be an abbreviated one with only 30 golfers to talk about. There's not even any six-man snake drafts available on DraftKings this week, so just be going through the 30 golfers and getting out of here in fairly short order this week, but still nice to give you a little video to kind of go through how we are approaching this final week of the season. Then there will be 2 weeks off before the fall swing starts with the Pro Tour Championship, and then another little break for the Ryder Cup. So seems weird to me that they're throwing one fall swing event in there before the Ryder Cup, but that is how they are handling it before the fall swing picks up again in October. So you won't have us for a couple weeks here during that little break, and then we'll get back to it after that. But to get things started here tonight, you've got myself, Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84, got Derek Farnsworth, aka Notorious, alongside as usual. Noto, how's your week been?
Yeah, week's good. Final event of the season, although I guess, do the fall events count for the 2025 season? They just don't count towards the points?
So they count. They only count for the golfers that are in certain positions in the standings. So like the top 50 are locked in, but from 50 to 125, I think they still count for those for the previous season to determine what their rankings are going into next year, something like that.
Gotcha. Mike's asking if Tommy wins this week, does it count as a real win? Yes, it does. And I bet on him, so I sure hope he finally gets it done.
Yeah, he'll take anything, I'm sure, if it's a win on the PGA Tour. We'll see how that goes next week. He was in the mix again last week, ended up finishing T4 alongside Sam Burns. Mav McNeely, a solo third. Robert McIntyre had the lead throughout the week, had a 4-shot lead heading into Sunday, shot 3 over par. Scheffler chased him down 1 by 2 after just kind of lurking for much of the week. Before you know it, at the end of the week, Scheffler's on top again. Not really sure what else to say at this point. The machine keeps on rolling. Still no finishes worse than eighth place since the Players back in March, which is pretty remarkable. So Scheffler wins again. What were some of your other takeaways from last week?
Yeah, I didn't see what his odds were before the day started, but man, it felt like he was in a pretty good spot, even though he was so far back because he was in that final group, and he's such a good ball striker that he just puts so much pressure on his opponents. And McIntyre,
like it was like plus 240-ish.
Which is crazy because that was, less than what his pre-tournament odds probably were.
He was 4 back.
Yeah. But yeah, you just kind of felt that, especially those first couple holes. I think did they go birdie bogey on number 1? And then,
yeah, it was a 2-shot swing on the first for sure.
And then, Mac just didn't have his ball striking and missed a couple of short putts on the front 9. And then by the time they made the turn, it kind of felt like it was already over.
Yeah, which is crazy to think when you've got a 4-shot lead coming into the day, but Bobby Mack did hold on for second. Sure, he was a little bit disappointed with the way that all went down on Sunday, but Scheffler's done that to many golfers in the field. I forgot to respond to this last night, but I saw that you had messaged me about Harry Hall actually gaining strokes on approach last week in addition to the putter, so another 6th place finish for him. He just keeps on rolling with his top 25, top 30 finishes of his own. And I guess he's guaranteed another top 30 here this week with only 30 golfers. So look, I said I was going to keep on writing him up until he gives me a reason not to, and he still hasn't. This has been a couple months now. So good on him for keeping the good vibes rolling. And Victor Hovland, Ricky Fowler, and Ludwig kind of rounding out your top 8 there last week. And wasn't quite enough for I'm going to see where where Fowler ended up, because I remember we talked
32nd.
about.
I looked it up on yesterday. I figured he got in, but he didn't.
I know he had needed like a solo 11th at least to have a shot, but yeah, ended up 32nd. Michael Kim 31st. Akshay, Chris Goddard, Sung J M, the last three guys to make it in to the final 30. So we'll see where this week goes. And of course, they have changed the format again this week. I mean, we've got obvious time to talk about this, but it was never felt perfect with them doing the starting strokes. Like the last 3 or 4 years, they had seeded these top 30 golfers based on their standings. And, the leader in the standings started at like -10. And then the second place guy started at -8 or something like that. And then they kind of went down the board with guys starting at different starting strokes, kind of making it like a showdown feel, except for 4 days. Well, now they've scrapped that entirely, and everyone starts at square one, which I suppose is good for the competitiveness, because starting Scheffler with a lead would probably feel unfair at this point. But now it feels weird not having them doing any starting strokes. And I don't know if there's a perfect way to do this. But here we are, back to just whoever wins this week wins the FedEx Cup. And that's what everyone was complaining about before they changed the format.
Yeah, and before that, it was 2 different tournament winners. They had the FedEx Cup winner based on the points, and then also the winner of the Tour Championship. Sometimes they were different. I remember the year Tiger won, I think Justin Rose ended up winning the FedEx Cup. So, I don't know. There's no perfect answer. I think at least they're trying something different. And the starting strokes just makes it so tough to handicap, makes it so tough to play DFS. There's like 5 guys that can potentially win, and it just doesn't feel great. So I'm glad they did away with them, but at the same time, I don't know, it's still not perfect. I would love to see some match play eventually incorporated into something in the playoffs, or just give us some match play back. But it's better than it was. I'm excited for the week.
Yeah, cut it down to the final 32 and do a bracket. That would seem to be doable. Make the worst seed start one stroke down or something. I don't know. But alas, we're left with a 30 golfer tournament, no head starts. Winner gets the crown, and it might feel unfair to the guys that are at the top, but feeling pretty good for the guys that just barely snuck through. And we'll see where that leads this year. But it was just funny to see them go back to the old format that everybody complained about beforehand. Again, no perfect answer, but that's what we've got this week. So obviously no cut, only 30 golfers. What do we know about the course this week?
East Lake Golf Club in Georgia. It's a par 70, 7,400 yards. So par adjusted, one of the longer courses on the PGA Tour. It's one of those courses where you have to drive it well in order to score. The fairways are narrow and they're tree lined, so you got to keep it in the short grass. The rough's pretty thick, and then I think driver was hit 86% of tee shots last year, which is one of the highest marks that we've seen in the last couple of years. So I do think good drivers of the ball are going to have a big edge. Good iron players have historically played very well at East Lake as well. So look at your ball strikers and kind of go from there. The green's pretty average in size. They feature Bermuda grass. They should be pretty fast, like 12.5 on the stim meter. And that's pretty much it for me. I mean, course history has been pretty predictive here, year in and year out. So guys that play well here tend to continue to play well here. So I'm not looking at a ton of first timers, although there's a couple that do project well for me. Anything else you want to add on the course?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I believe they have changed this from a par 71 to a par 70 this year. I was trying to figure out if that was last year or this is the first year. Yeah, it was a par 71 last year, and it's playing as a par 70 now. They've converted the 14th hole, I believe, from a par 5 to a par 4. So just like one of the other events these past couple weeks, they've artificially made the scoring more difficult. And also you can't really look at the winning score from last year and think, Scheffler got to 30 under. Again, they had the starting strokes last year where, he got to start at -10 or whatever it was. So just take some of those historical results with a grain of salt when it comes to winning scores and stuff, because again, the last 3-4 years, they've used that different format that we don't have this year. So otherwise, yeah, pretty long course now, especially for a par 70. Total driving, I think, is big this week. Par 4 scoring gets a boost. Guys good with their long irons. You hit on most of it. I think that's a pretty good backdrop. Obviously, a lot of these top golfers have played here many times before, and since we only have 30 golfers and they're the 30 best golfers on the PGA Tour, like everybody in some fashion is rosterable. Even the guys that are at the very bottom of the pricing scale have been playing pretty decent golf to get here. So I think that adds an interesting layer of strategy with how you want to handle things this week, particularly with if you're trying to make unique Scheffler builds and all that. So I guess just before we'll dig into the golfers here in just a second, but before we do that, any specific strategy things you would look at or want to pass along? People are trying to let's find the biggest GPP this week on DraftKings. So the biggest GPP on DraftKings is $25, 800K, 37,000 entries. So 37,000 entries with only 30 golfers, you're going to have a million dupes. What do you think as far as optimal strategy angle this week?
Yeah, in the expert survey, I gave like 2 ways to get different this week. I think one is to not play Scheffler. Doesn't feel good. He's obviously the top player on the board. But he actually wasn't featured in some of the single entry tournament winning lineups last week. So there's certainly a path for him to win this week and not be in the optimal lineup, especially with only 30 golfers in the field. The other way, if you're playing Scheffler, maybe leave, 500 or more on the table. It's hard to do since you don't have a lot of salary once you start with him. But I think if you do that, you're going to avoid a lot of dupes. But ultimately, you're just going to have to find the perfect combo of the 30, and you're probably going to be splitting it if you win.
Yeah, I think leaving salary on the table is the obvious one, and then also setting, if you're building in our lineup builder, you can set a maximum total lineup ownership, which I think is good to do. And normally I set that at like 80, but obviously has to be higher this week because we've only got 30 golfers, and even the low owned guys are going to be like 10-15% owned. So you set that in like the 100 to 110 range, that'll still, and leave some salary on the table, that might increase your chances of getting a unique or at least less number of times duplicated kind of lineup. All right, let's fly through this player pool this week, of which there is not a ton, but we'll go through what we've got here. So as usual, Scheffler's the most expensive golfer. He's 13.9, but again, that still leaves you with 7,200 per golfer. And for what it's worth, on DraftKings, there are only 11 golfers, I believe. I just did that quick math. 11 golfers priced above the average 83.33 that you have to spend per player, and 19 golfers below it. I think I did that math wrong. 3, 6, 9. There are 9 golfers above 83.33 and 21 golfers under 83.33. So that kind of skews the distribution a little bit. And with the lower guys still being rosterable, it's not like 13.9 for Scheffler makes him impossible to play. So don't get freaked out when you see that salary tag at first. And, when you look at his results since the players, 15 starts, 15 top 10s, like 10 top 5s, 9 or 10 top 5s, 5 wins. It's just ridiculous what he's been doing, kind of running out of superlatives at this point. But we've got him at 45-ish% owned right now. What are you doing with that information?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm making one lineup this week. I'm not playing Scheffler, not because I don't like him, not because I don't think he's the best play on the board. I don't know. I just want to be different, and I don't want to have to pick between a bunch of 6K guys that I don't like and then leave a bunch of salary on the table. So I'm not playing Scheffler. I do think he's the best play. You mentioned the form. Obviously, incredible. 8th or better basically every week. Ran away from the field last week on Sunday. He's never had the lowest 72-hole score here. I think he probably will this week. He's like plus 170 to win this week. But just from, I want to be different, want to only sweat one lineup. So not playing him, but I certainly won't be, shocked if that costs me.
Hypothetically, if you did 10 lineups, how many would you put him in? I know you're not doing this. This is probably hard to answer, but
Yeah, I'd probably do half chef and half not.
Yeah. I think I'm going to land around 50 to 60%. Again, we've got him at 45. FanDuel usually skews somewhat higher because of how their pricing works. FanDuel, we've got his ownership at 66, which is wild. So just a big number, but I mean, he gets it done every week. So not going to fade him by any means. I don't think it's necessarily the wrong answer to say, no, I'm going to fade him in single entry. But, if Rory is going to be 32% owned, that's not that much lower to where I just kind of go back to, well, I'll play Scotty. But Rory's so Rory and Ludwig. Weird to me to see Ludwig as the third golfer above 10K. I think I probably would have made a case for Fleetwood to be there, maybe even Henley to be there. And we've got Ludwig at 27% as well. I know he's been playing a little better lately. Probably profiles pretty good on a longer course. And he does have, a couple top 10s in a row. So I get it. But in terms of the whole season, I think Fleetwood has been far more consistent. And I'd argue Henley as well. Semantics there. But the rest of the top 5 is Rory, Ludwig, Fleetwood, and Henley at 9,600 and above. We'll stop there for now. How are you handling that kind of next group of 4?
Yeah, so I'm only playing small field stuff. So the ownership difference that I think is going to happen between Scheffler and Rory is probably going to be a little bit bigger in small field stuff. At least that's what I'm banking on. So I'm going to be playing some Rory. He's got the great course history at East Lake. He hasn't been playing as good as Scheffler, but he has been playing good. T12 last week, certainly nothing wrong with that. So I like Rory. Probably won't be playing Ludwig, but he's one of those guys that strings together good finishes and back-to-back top 10s. That does seem encouraging. T19 here in his debut in terms of his 72-hole score. So I don't have a problem with him, but if I'm ranking the guys above 10K, I think I'd go Rory, Sheff, Ludwig. And then the 9s, I love Tommy. He's second in the field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. So any time frame you want to look at, he's one of the best tee to green guys in the field. He obviously blew the lead at St. Jude, but he bounced back with a 4th place finish last week. So obviously still in a good spot mentally. And yeah, like the chat was saying, if there's ever going to be a Tommy win, this would be it, because people are going to question it because there's only 30 golfers in the field. So he's my favorite in the 9s. But yeah, Hovland's been playing great. He's won this event before. Won't be playing any JT. Probably won't be playing Henley, although that scares me because he's a fairways and irons guy and he's from Georgia.
Just look this up on DraftKings now. DraftKings has odds for wire-to-wire winner. Obviously, you mentioned Scheffler at plus 170 or whatever to win the tournament. What would you guess, if you haven't seen this, his odds are on a wire-to-wire win, meaning for those of you who might be unfamiliar with the golf lingo, that he leads after every round?
I'm going to go plus 600.
It's on the nose. That is correct. Plus 600. Give him his prize.
But the thing is, what's his first round leader? Plus 400?
Gotta find it. Never know what header that one's under. I always struggle to remember that one. Need first round leader on DraftKings. Unless I'm surely there it is. Plus 500. So yeah, just bet that.
What? Plus 100 extra for
wire to wire. Yeah. I guess they're figuring he'd be out to a big enough lead maybe, but yeah, don't bet the plus 6. Bet the plus 500 first round leader if you're in that market. But for reference, the next highest wire to wire best odds is Rory at plus 4,000. Scheffler at plus 600, which is just it's crazy. Just to see all the markets where he's lapping the field, basically.
JT Poston did it last year or 2 years ago. The John Deere, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what his odds would be if he started with a lead, and if they used the old format, what his wire to wire odds would be and his overall odds. It would be crazy. It'd basically be game over for the guys starting at the bottom, but they don't have to worry about that this time. So, all right, in agreement there that Fleetwood I think would be my next option. I'm fine with Rory as well. but Fleetwood at a discount, again, continues to say all the right things despite the tough loss a few weeks ago, and then still put up a strong showing with a T4 last week. So it's definitely not affecting his performance the following week when he has one of those close calls. So kudos on him for continuing to play well. I'm fine playing Henley and Hovland too. I'll probably be underweight a little bit on Henley with the length of this course, but all of those guys are fine to kind of mix and match. Especially if you're not playing Scheffler, you can probably go to those guys at the top. So, are you leaning now to a Rory Fleetwood single entry type of start?
That's the start.
It's what I gathered. All right, let's move on to the 8K range here. So we've got Patrick Cantlay. Feels a little cheaper than I expected at 8,700, but did not play well last week. Sam Burns, coming off a strong finish, was top 5 last week. Morikawa and JJ Spawn. So only 4 golfers in that 8K range on DraftKings. And then again, it skews towards the cheaper range. I like Burns at 8,500. I think if you're starting with Scheffler, it's tough to get a Scheffler Fleetwood build, especially one that's probably unique. So I'm probably going in the 8s for my pairing with Scheffler. You could give Cantlay, you can make a case for Cantlay. I do like Burns though. We know that the short game is always there with him. He gained about 4 strokes from tee to green last week. So I like Burns. He's got plenty of history here, top 15s the last couple of years. Again, small field, but I was encouraged by last week, and always a guy that can get it rolling with the putter. So I like Burns at 8,500. We've talked about Cantlay tending to play well in the playoffs. Struggled a bit last week, but now it's anybody's game here with a fresh start. He would probably be my second choice behind Burns. What are your thoughts on these 4 guys in the 8K range?
Yeah, I'm on Burns too. He's not known as a good driver of the ball, especially in the last couple of years, but he's 4th in the field in total driving over the last 6 months, which is very encouraging. He's gained on approach in 8 of his last 9 events, which is good. And then you mentioned the short game, one of the best putters in the field. And he's got pretty good course history too. So I'm on Burns. I bet him outright at 30-1 too. Should probably just bet it in the winner without Scheffler market, but I didn't. And then the rest of the range, I don't know. Cantlay, I never get him right. His short game has been so bad this year that I have a hard time trusting him. Morikawa projects well for me. The last 2 events haven't been amazing, T33, T22, but the ball striking's been really good, and he did have the lowest 72-hole score here last year. So I don't know. I think Morikawa could be interesting large field tournament play, but he's just kind of been all over the place, firing his caddy, not happy with anything. So it's kind of hard to trust, but yeah, I don't know. And then Spawn, just kind of the odd man out for me.
Yeah, you better go bet that winner without Scheffler market before you're kicking yourself. It's 20-1 compared to 28, at least on DraftKings right now. So you'll be kicking yourself if you finish the second to Scheffler. But that'd be good for my lineups if it's Burns and Scheffler in some combination at the top. So we're pretty much in agreement on that range. And so that's, again, we've only gone through 10 golfers and we're under the 8Ks. So there's 20 golfers left that are all basically priced in value territory. 9 of them are in the 7Ks. The rest of them are in the 6Ks. 7Ks starts with Cam Young. Again, has a win, 5th, 11th his last 3 starts. So he's been on fire. Ben Griffin blamed a slow start last week. I don't know if everybody saw this, but blamed a slow start on an overdose of creatine, which was just a strange thing to read. But for what it's worth, he did finish 12th, and that was his 3rd top 15 finish in a row. Sepp Straka is back after missing last week due to a personal matter. We've got Hideki, Bobby Mack, Keegan Bradley, Mav McNeely, Corey Connors, and my boy Harry Hall all the way down at 7K, rounding out this range. Obviously, you know who I like there at the bottom, but let's filter through these 7K guys. What are you looking at in here?
I've never heard of an overdose of creatine, but
I don't know. I read that and I was confused, but that's what he says.
Yeah, that's what Steve says too. But hey, at least we know how he's gained so much speed this year. just overdosing on creatine.
He said he 4-putted because he was having tremors.
It's probably caffeine, not creatine. But, teach their own. Got to blame something.
Takes 15 milligrams a day, he says.
15. Yeah, I do 10. I mean, seems... Anyway. Griffin projects well for me.
Oh, sorry. He normally takes 15, and he had more than that. So, a snowball-sized clump. I don't know, man. That's just what the pundits have written about. So,
yeah, he did 4-putt from like 4 feet, I think. Anyway, yeah, I like the model likes McIntyre a lot at 7,400. Obviously, doesn't know that he blew a big lead last Sunday, so I don't know how he responds to that, but I think he's going to be okay. He was T16 here last year. Don't mind McNeely, even though he's a first timer. Keegan's good ball striker, good total driver. Those are probably my favorites in the low 7s. And then Cam Young in tournaments makes sense. He's been really good the last month or two. And what do you think of Seb Straka coming off of had the week off last week? He's been pretty good at Eastlake in the past.
Yeah, I mean, hard to know what's kind of going on, but he probably knew that he had his top 30 spot secured. No starting strokes advantage to be had, so maybe it was just a clever way to take a week off. I mean, if that's scaring people away because they think his focus is somewhere else or whatever, like, I'm fine playing him. I haven't played him a ton this year, and he tends to be a little overowned for my liking and way up and down for much of the year, but the upside's there. So, yeah, I don't mind him this week.
Kind of on the same page. He's one of those guys that he's contended in a lot of big events. So, I don't know if you're looking for upside at fairly low ownership, I don't mind him.
I'll give him top 30. We'll call that.
Lock it in.
Yeah, I like Bobby Mack this week too. I think he rebounds fine. It's not like he blew it on the final hole or anything. So he can hit the ball plenty far. I think if he's keeping it in the fairways, he'll be in the mix again. Stats are really good over the last trailing 24 rounds or so. So I like Bobby Mack. I think McNeely is fine at the bottom part of this range too. Really good guys that you can put in your mix and match in your Scheffler builds. Again, you'll have to maybe try to leave some salary on the table, be cognizant of trying not to throw some dupes out there. But, I mean, I think Cam Young, Straka, and Griffin at the top part of the range are playable too. So really going to try to land on those guys, especially since, everybody knows how much I like Harry Hall. That goes without saying at this point. Until he finally has a bad finish, he's going to keep being in my player pool, especially down at 7K. Feels like a discount. But if you haven't been playing him all along, you're probably thinking you don't want to hop on at this point. So that is where most of the exciting values, I think, are going to be. Again, everybody's playable because we're down to the top 30 guys, but Akshay kind of barely snuck through. Goddard spent a little bit more hit or miss since his epic couple weeks overseas. Harmon, Lowry, Taylor. Sungjae has good course history here. If you wanna go for that, and he was like plus 10 last week, but still made it through. Bridgman and Novak, and Harris English at the top of the 6K range. I didn't mention him, but feels like most people are going to skew towards the 7s. We actually have a few people projecting for single digit ownership in the 6s. That would be Harmon and Bridgman and Novak in the 8 to 9% range. Is there anybody you're willing to flag plan on here, or maybe somebody you're looking to get different with in the 6Ks?
I'm a sucker for good course history, but Sungjae Im losing 11 strokes on approach last week.
Yikes.
I can't do it. He's been so bad. We played that game where you had to guess how many tournaments in a row he lost on approach a couple weeks ago. I don't know. I can't do that. I like Harris English at 6,900. He's consistent. He's got a good short game. The ball striking's been better over the last 3 months than it has over the last 6 and 12. So kind of trending in the right direction there. Maybe Justin Rose. I was looking at his course history. He hasn't played here the last 5 years, but prior to that, he'd been awesome at this event. And he's 6th, 16th, 1st, and 30th the last 4 events. I think that's better than most in this range. So I'd probably go English and Rose as my favorites down here. Yeah,
I don't mind a peek at Rose in GPPs with you that I can't do Sung Jae at this point. I'd rather, play some veterans like Harmon or Lowry, guys that, have been under some type of pressure, major winners that aren't going to be phased by the big prize purse this week. So I'd lean towards the veterans over the young guys here. And obviously Rose and English would fit that bill also. So that's what I would do if I'm probably not going too deep into the sixes, but would maybe sprinkle a couple of those guys in as back end roster fillers, especially if you're multi-entering this week. All right, that takes it through it. I figured it would take us about a half an hour, and that's exactly what it took. So no snake draft this week. There's not enough golfers in the field. And again, we got a couple weeks off here for you before the Procore Championship. That'll be after the first week of NFL season. So don't forget to come back for that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Then that way you can get notifications about when we're going live. All of our NFL content is going to be coming down the pike here at RotoGrinders. And college football actually starts this weekend. There's only 3 games this Saturday, but if you're into college football, would have to say that our college football premium package is worth the price with how well our projections team and our news updates and all that. Especially on Saturday mornings, if you're a busy parent or you got kids in sports, those updates can be invaluable. So busy time on the sports calendar. Best time to check us out, rotogrinders.com. Get the bang for your buck there if you want the combo package with football coming up. So, Noto, anything else before we take a break for a couple weeks?
No, I've been a crazy summer over here, but it was good to be back with you the last few weeks. And I'm excited for this week. And then we get into football, get into the Ryder Cup. Should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all in a few weeks. Enjoy the start of football season. Enjoy the end of summer. Back to school is already rolling out here in the Midwest. Crazy how fast time flies. And with that, we'll call it a show for tonight. Thanks to Steve for producing, as always, for us. Thanks to Noto for joining me. I'm Justin. We'll see you back here in a couple weeks, everybody. Take care.